started in 2009 as an experiment for Motor Magazine, has now turned into their biggest shootout of the year. In fact, the 2010 Castrol Edge Hot Tuner Challenge is Motor Magazine's biggest shootout to date, with 30 cars on hand. Make no mistake though, this shootout isn't for riced up 15-year-old imports or your mate's old school V8 built in the shed. It's for some of the best performance cars available on the market today that have been modified in every area to improve overall performance and balance. The whole concept is rather simple. Some of Australia's top aftermarket tuning shops bring out some of their finest street cars, so Motor Magazine can do what they do best. Find out which one is the fastest. With a performance box in hand, Motor Magazine test driver extraordinaire Warren Luff, and thanks to Castrol Edge, V8 supercar veteran Paul Morris put the cars through their paces at WSID and Eastern Creek Raceway. To keep things fair, the cars were broken down into 3 price groups and spread across 3 issues of the magazine. A full rundown of the rules and all the hard data can be found in the October, November and December issues of Motor Magazine. Thanks to Castrol Edge, the 3-part video series will focus on exactly what you want, seeing and hearing the cars in action. As expected, the sub $75,000 category was the largest field at the event. To help simplify things a little further, the cars were broken down into Euro, Japanese and Aussie muscle, which also happens to be generally the 3 main groups of enthusiasts. Volkswagen dominates the Euro group with 3 Golfs, but they are all different, with a 1.4 litre TSI, the iconic GTI and the new Golf R all-wheel drive. Scuderia Imports also brought along what is arguably the smoothest and sexiest Volkswagen ever made, the Scirocco. Self-imported, it is the only one in the country. The wet weather on day 2 didn't help, and neither did the race tyres either, but the all-wheel drive of the APR Golf R did help. The lone Audi S3 lacked the power to take advantage of its all-wheel drive around the creek, but it was the quickest Euro to 100 and down the quarter mile. There was also a lone BMW 135i from the guys at Evolve Technique. In standard trim, the 6-cylinder turbo punches above its weight, but with some clever modifications, it's even better, and turned out to be the Euro car to watch out for. In the Japanese camp was the never-ending Evo versus WRX battle. MRT and Whiteline teamed up once again and brought along their Evo 10 and STI demo cars, packing more mods than last year. The STI turned out to be a monster, cracking the 100 barrier in under 4 seconds and running deep into the 12s down the quarter mile, keeping cars from the over 150k bracket honest. Tunehouse brought along another monster STI to represent their Japanese tuning abilities. With Cosworth and HKS parts galore, it was the most powerful of all the Japanese cars and ran mid-12 with ease. Rounding out the 2-on-2 Evo versus STI battle was the Evo 10 from Tarmac Racing Gurus TMR Performance. The big surprise in the Japanese all-wheel drive turbo brigade was the MRT Liberty, which was the fastest car around the wet Motorkana, most likely due to the standard road tyres and a friendly power curve. But if you like big cubes, big power and raw grunt, then the Aussie group was for you. And with a total of 5 V8s and 2 turbo Fords, it was the biggest group of all. With superchargers hanging off all of the V8s bar one, big numbers were present in this group, with every car except one making over 300 rear-wheel kilowatts. It certainly was a horsepower party. But it was the turbo 6 cylinders that put down the biggest horsepower numbers, and the F6 Typhoon of BTA Motorsports put down 360 rear-wheel kilowatts through an auto gearbox, mind you, which enabled the car to do this. With the all-wheel drive turbos having the advantage on paper around the wet track and on the drag strip, the Aussie muscle-proof theories don't always hold true, and dominated the leaderboards in every category. Names like Harrop Engineering, Walkinshaw Performance, Patterson-Cheney and the Horsepower Factory meant that these V8 FGs and VEs had some serious hardware on board, and were set up not just to make power, but to be able to use it. Super Pursuit Ute was using a rear wing straight off a V8 supercar. Outlandish it seemed, but it definitely worked.
Now you can just do what you want with it. And if it goes wrong, it's real easy to sort out. But there's other things like that.
But the White Knight, or the Hearse on Heat from Walkinshaw Performance, proved to be the ultimate package, dominating the strip and the track in both the wet and dry. Would a dry track have changed things? Quite possibly yes, but a street car needs to see all types of weather, and it's all relative. Hopefully next year, Mother Nature won't be so cruel.
Look, I think from an emotive standpoint, the Scirocco, it's just such a beautiful looking car. It obviously struggled for getting off the line, but it's doing 100 mile an hour standing still. And probably the Cheney RS400 Commodore was so good off the line. You could really load it up, use a lot of clutch, and it really just bit down and went really hard. Probably one of the standouts for me was the MRT STI. It probably didn't show its true colours over there on the Motorkana because of the engine work that's been done. It was really hard to sort of get it up and spooling up the turbo, but out here on the track it really found its own. It was one of the very few four-wheel drive cars that was forgiving to drive. A lot of the all-wheel drive cars really struggle in these conditions with a bit of mid-corner oversteer and they tend to snap pretty quick, but that car was a really nice thing to drive. Around the circuit, again, the two Harrop cars, they were all really nice. Again, you had to really work hard at them because in these conditions, they're not sort of, it's not ideal conditions to sort of high horsepower rear-wheel drive cars, but you knew that when you got a good lap out of them that you'd really worked hard for your money.
So who won each category and the entire sub-75k group? Well, you'll have to pick up the October issue of Motor Magazine from all leading newsstands to find out. It's filled with comprehensive data, modification details and driver reviews. Grab your copy of Part 1 of the Castrol Edge 2010 Hot Tuner Challenge in Motor Magazine now. Part 2 moves into the 75 to 150k bracket. Stay tuned.